This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Lotierzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Lotierzo and Jack Hirsch.
And we're back. Welcome to Glove Fist. My name is Frank Lotierzo, former fighter, part-time writer, try to be full-time observer, joined by co-host Jack Hirsch, former 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association of America. Jack, how are you tonight?
Very good, Frank. Nice busy weekend. A lot to talk about.
Yeah, there was a great fight, and there was another fight that got more attention that I think is very telling. So I guess we will start off with that. Let's just get right to it. Anthony Joshua, 2-time unified heavyweight champion, fights for the second time after losing consecutive bouts to Alexander Usyk, and he stops Robert Helenius with one right hand in the 7th round. It was probably the only meaningful punch he threw in the fight. Jack, I don't know what you thought about it, but I will just say this. I think Anthony Joshua fights like a deer drinks water at a stream, where he's bending down, looking over, trying to get some water, and he's looking around, waiting for something bad to happen. I think that's how Anthony Joshua fights. I don't care who works his corner. I don't think it's going to change. The only guy that would have had a shot to change him and turn him around like he did with Lennox Lewis and Vladimir Klitschko was the late Emmanuel Stewart. He's no longer with us. AJ, I just think is just biding time, and I really do think he should look at the Wilder fight, if it happens, as a cash-out fight.
Frank, what did Rocky Balboa say? If I can change, you can change. We can all change. Anthony Joshua's changed. He's gotten older. Fighters change their style. Even the great ones like a Pernell Whitaker, he changed his style a little bit, would fight a little more on the inside, would move in a little more. You know, fighters adjust as time goes by, and that's what's going on.
So that's what you see. You don't see a scared Joshua. You see a reinvention of his style.
I see, basically, that's what I do. I think Joshua really doesn't care that much what we think. He's not overly sensitive. He wants to deliver sensational knockout. And he did get the end result with Robert Helenius. He did get a spectacular knockout, unlike the Jermaine Franklin fight. And let's be honest, Frank, what do people remember? They remember the conclusion. How many people remember that Michael Moorer won virtually every second of his match against George Foreman until he suddenly got knocked out in the 10th round? They remember the knockout. And everyone wants to be overly critical of Joshua. You know, Anthony Joshua, let's throw this at you, Frank, and you tell me your opinion of this. Let's take the Joshua years ago when he was supposedly at his peak. He fought Joseph Parker, a competent heavyweight. Didn't he beat Parker much in the same way he would beat him now? Just basically boxed him from the outside, was kind of a little timid. You know, and that's been Joshua's history for the most part.
Jack, that was all post-Klitschko. Joshua changed after the Klitschko fight, and he realized he had something to protect, and he no longer put his punches together. Jack, he fights with genuine caution now. He never takes any chances. It's a predictable textbook style. It doesn't suit him. As I said earlier, he looks like he took a boxing course at the YMCA. He throws almost no body punches, and he takes a step back whenever the other guy is directing a punch his way. The knockout punch was a beauty, but it was the only meaningful punch he threw in the fight. Look, Anthony Joshua, I have said this long before we've done this show. His body is capable of defeating any heavyweight in the world that's currently ranked, okay? but he doesn't have the mind to do it because he just doesn't want to go into that danger zone and put the punches together. Jack, think about this. Tommy Morrison and John Ruiz suffered. I'm gonna speak for you. Two of the most horrific heavyweight knockouts we've ever seen. I agree. I don't think anybody disputes that. When they came back, they had no trepidation. They jumped right in. Okay? Anthony Joshua is just one of those guys that can't get over it. And now they're talking about him possibly fighting Wilder. And Joshua, if he stands there and he lets Wilder line him up for that right hand, he's going to put him to sleep, Jack, because one guy's coming to the ring looking to create mayhem, and the other guy's coming there looking to avoid it. I just think it's so obvious that Joshua's just not the same guy.
Joshua was never an ultra-aggressive fighter as far as cutting the ring off on opponents. It just wasn't his style. He didn't cut the ring off with opponents. He would catch them with punches during an exchange. But
Jack, he would go after them behind his jab to set up big shots. He did push the fight.
He would, but you can make an argument that Joshua's a little past his prime, perhaps. Okay, he's in his 30s now.
33.
Right, and he's maybe not quite the fighter he was, but it doesn't mean because he's mentally scarred. You lose a certain physical prowess when you get older. A lot of fighters, and at 33, Joshua's lost a little. He's not quite as explosive of punches before. And I understand one punch with Helenius. I'm talking about with consistency to hurt an opponent. Anyone could come out with one punch out of nowhere. Would you compare Joshua? Now, I get the feeling you're comparing the Joshua now to the Hector Camacho after he fought Edwin Rosario, that you seem to feel he's going along that path. I don't. Take a fight with Joshua and Deontay Wilder. I'm going to hold off on my prediction for now, even though you're talking like you feel Wilder is going to be a lock. Well, Joshua is going to box him. He's not going to carry the fight to Wilder. That doesn't mean he's going to circle the ring. He's going to try to keep it in ring center, outbox Wilder. Wilder's punches, as powerful as they are, they're long and they're slow. Wilder's not a quick
Jack, his right hand is not slow.
His
right hand is not slow. He gets that off quick. He's not a good boxer, but he gets his punches off quicker than Joshua does.
Yeah, but Joshua is technically better than Wilder, much better technically than Wilder, and he's going to try to use that to his advantage, pile up points, outbox Wilder. If Wilder doesn't knock Joshua out, let's put it this way, can you see a legitimate path to victory for Wilder, barring multiple knockdowns? He doesn't have any knockdowns. It goes the distance. Maybe floors Joshua once during the fight. Can you see Wilder actually beating Joshua by decision?
Jack, no. I agree. Joshua is the technically better fighter, and he actually matches up better with Fury than Usyk does. Than Wilder does. But all the things you just said, they sound good on paper, okay? But when those two guys get in the ring, one of them is going to have the alpha mentality, and he is not going to allow Joshua to box and pick the pace and do what he wants. He's going to sense Joshua has trepidation. He's going to come out firing bombs, Jack, and Joshua will be there to get hit. And if Joshua doesn't engage, Wilder will become more emboldened. I agree. Joshua's clearly the better fighter, but I think this fight comes down to one thing. If they fight, and I'm not sure that they're going to, mindset of the two guys coming into the ring. One guy has no doubt he's going to win. The other guy hopes that he's going to win. So to me, based on that,
coming to win, and Joshua's going to believe that he's going to win the fight. He's going to
until a couple right hands go whizzing by his chin, and then I think that goes out the window.
You mentioned the key point we haven't talked about. We don't know for sure what type of chin Joshua has. We point to the Ruiz thing, but there was kind of a bit of an equilibrium punch.
And he got up 3 times.
It could maybe happen to anyone. A case in point would be, and we're going to talk about him later, Manuel Navarette. He's got a great chin, but he got knocked down by Liam Smith, and he spit his mouthpiece out the fight before. It's the only time I remember him getting hurt in his whole career. It happens to everyone. It happened to young Cassius Clay, got decked by Henry Cooper, a heavy knockdown, and he was in
Jack,
trouble.
that was Cassius Clay, 17 or 18 fights into his career. He was about to be 21-year-old kid who hadn't filled out. Anthony Joshua is 30. Jack, he's 33.
Okay,
he's 33.
Joshua's been hurt. Joshua was staggered by Dillian White in 2015. No big deal. You get staggered. Dillian White's a very hard.
Not in the heavyweight division. No, I'm not going to kill him for that.
And Dillian White was a very hard punch at that time. He got dropped by Vladimir Klitschko. No disgrace in that. Got up. Won
big puncher.
A heavy knockdown. We don't. So most of the evidence that we're holding against Joshua's chin is based on the first Ruiz fight. What happens if Deontay Wilder does land a couple of those right hands and Joshua shakes him off? I mean, then what happens?
If that happens, then Deontay Wilder is in trouble. But I don't see that happening. Again, I'm not saying Joshua is flawed physically. It's more of a mental thing with him. And Jack, this isn't like you say he's past his prime. Yeah, he's not his prime, but he's been fighting like this, and guys have been going rounds with him that shouldn't since 2017. Now, if you said to me, Frank, I'm going to get Joshua, who fought Dillian White and Klitschko, and match him up against Wilder, at that time, I favor Joshua, but I just don't see. I just don't see, Jack. I just don't see that tenacity and that willing to die in order to win. And then some of the things he says after the fight really do. They really shouldn't put a mic in front of him.
Mentally, I wonder where he's coming from. I really do, Frank.
That's exactly what I've been saying, Jack, the whole time. So how is he going to hold up in a big fight?
I don't think Joshua is scared of any heavyweight. The only one he's ever ducked was actually Wilder years ago, but that was more, I think, Eddie Hearn.
Yeah, I don't think he ducked him. No, I don't think so. I think he had no fear of him before he fought Klitschko.
Right. I don't think Joshua has fear of Deontay Wilder right now. I really, really don't. Because if
you don't think he has trepidation?
I don't think so. I don't think
Jack,
so.
If Wilder hits Joshua with a couple of the right hands he hit Fury with, do you like his chances to finish that fight? I don't.
But let me say this. It would be easier for Wilder to land on a Tyson Fury than it would on an Anthony Joshua, because Joshua will be taking less chances. Joshua's a competent boxer. Look, he won 5 of the first 6 rounds against Robert Helenius. Okay,
he's a very good boxer. Good form, good technique.
Keep this in mind too. Helenius was a late substitute himself. Helenius had been training for another fight. So Helenius was in decent condition, maybe not great shape like he would have been had he had a lot of time to prepare specifically for Anthony Joshua. Helenius fought with no fear. He took a shot.
He had nothing to lose.
And he fought that way, came up with a really strong fight. And it wasn't the style Joshua was training for. I got to admit this, Frank. Until Joshua landed that right hand that ended it, I'm thinking if this fight goes the distance, I'm not defending Joshua in any way, shape, or form, because you've got to get out a big target like Robert Helenius.
Who does not have a great chin, who has been stopped.
Right. No, I didn't want to compare him to Deontay Wilder. That would be unfair. They're different styles. Just because Wilder took him out in 1 round, you don't say the others have to do it. The other big punches have to follow, suit that way. But
Jack, let me just say this.
How would you evaluate Joshua's performance? If you had to give him a grade, I would give him a B. What would you give him?
The same. But let me just say this. I don't want to come off as if I'm picking on Anthony Joshua because, A, I do like him. I root for him. At one time, I thought he had the potential to be a star. He has good form, good fundamentals. I think his power is almost equal to Wilder's, and he actually has two good hands, not just one. And look, nobody's talking about what Wilder has left from that last Fury fight, because all we saw were 2 minutes and 57 seconds against Helenius. Okay, so we're going to assume he still has his power. We don't know what he has left, but to me, Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder comes down to one thing: who gets there first, and who will be the first guy to take the chance and draw blood. And I just think it will be Wilder. And if he does that, I think that'll be a lot on Joshua mentally. And I'm not confident that he can overcome that. And it's really bad to put Joshua down because he keeps winning. But to me, if Joshua can't beat Usyk, he can't beat Fury, and he can't beat Wilder, what is his purpose? Just to fight and make money? It's to be the champ and be the guy in the division again. And we already know he's not going to beat Usyk. I don't think he would beat Fury, and he's going to probably fight Wilder. I don't think he wins that fight. I hope he does. I don't think he will.
Frank, you're saying Wilder would beat Joshua because he beat him mentally. I don't think that has anything to do with it. If he knocks Joshua out, it's because he hit him with a powerful right hand, and Joshua's chin is just so. And that's.
But he has the mental confidence, Jack, to let his hands go. I don't think Joshua does. So I think the mental part is huge.
Wilder is very strong mentally, and I tend to agree with you, Frank. Joshua might be reluctant to get into exchanges, but let me throw this at you. Everything said about Joshua, there might come to a point where he says, just the heck with it. I'm sick of this talk. I'm going to go toe-to-toe with Deontay Wilder. And you want to know something? Joshua's explosive himself.
If he hits Wilder first, he can win the fight. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, Joshua might surprise us and just go at it with him. I mean, you never know.
Jack, you're right. But based on what we've seen in the two Usyk fights against Jermaine in the last fight and Helenius, I just don't think he's just going to turn it on for that. But I will tell you this. If I was in Anthony Joshua's corner, I think I said this last week, I would just say, son, this is probably your last fight, your retirement fight. Go out there and let the guns go, because it doesn't matter if he knocks you out in 2 rounds or in 9 rounds. But I'd rather you get stopped in the second, giving yourself a chance to beat him, than stink the place out for 8 rounds and he catches you in the 9th. And it's not like you don't have the capability to beat him, because you can knock him out. But you've got to get there first. And if you try to wait and react and box him, I just think Wilder will feed off of that, and he'll just become more emboldened. Look, we know Wilder can only do one thing. He's not a good boxer. He's not good technically, but he does have stamina. He has heart. He's not afraid to let his hands go. And he does have that power in his right hand. So if I were Joshua, Jack, I would just try to bully him and work him over and get him out of there.
I'm not sure whether I ever told you this story or not, but it was 2016, and I'm having lunch with the McGuigan camp. You know, Barry McGuigan, his son Shane McGuigan, who's a trainer, Josh Taylor was there. And at that time, Shane McGuigan was training David Haye. And this is before Haye fought Tony Bellew. And Shane McGuigan was talking to me about he thought that Haye could beat Joshua, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, he couldn't. And then I said to him, you know, at this point in his career, David Haye's more of a businessman than a fighter. And he said to me, so is Anthony Joshua. I couldn't see it at the time, but looking back.
He said that in 2016?
At 2016, yeah. So at this point, let's realize Joshua's making great money. It's his profession. He can milk this out. Big paydays. Don't misunderstand me. He's in it for more than money in the sport. You don't go to America and train in Dallas, with Derek James, with that stable of fighters. That's dedication, Frank. He could be in England, pick any trainer he wants, make the trainer come to him, train at his own pace. But it's like he's going back to his roots, so to speak, like early in his career, like any other fight. And when he's in Dallas, he's not the star of the gym there. It's Errol Spence, it's the Charlo brothers, Ryan Garcia's there. He's just one of the guys on the team there. And that says a lot about his ego, that his ego's not so big. Well, I'm Anthony Joshua, I'm bigger than you guys. He's happy to just blend in. Maybe that.
Jack, I think he's an easy guy to root for. I do. And I have always rooted for him. And at one time, I thought that he could be a poor man's Lennox Lewis. And I look back on that and I miss that. I was wrong. But Jack, let's transition to something that happened after the fight, because I think it's an interesting topic. Anthony Joshua had words for his detractors saying, did they ever box? The people that were putting him down and, being a little bit tough on the performance. He said, well, did they ever box? Have they ever fought? So my question is, do you have to be an ex-fighter to be a good trainer or a good boxing analyst? I'll end it up in one word. Let me get your opinion. I'll rebut your opinion. But I say no. What do you say?
You don't have to be. No, you don't have to be. If you understand the game, I remember the Manuel Stewart once said to me, if you've seen a lot of fights from ringside, that's your education. You're going to
absolutely.
School. You're going to school. You've watched fights over and over and over. I remember speaking with ringside physicians, at medical conventions. And I remember saying to one of the doctors, I'm not going to mention names, I know just as much as any other doctor here basically when to stop a fight. I could see the signs and see this, see that, and the doctor actually agreed with me. When you've watched enough fights and you know what to look for, it's what it is. But no, you don't have to. We hear that in sports all the time, Frank. You don't think I hear something like that in the Mac and Jack show? We have Jim Jeffcoat, two-time Super Bowl champion. He's never said it. He's probably laughs inside and says, well, Jack never played the game. And he's maybe a little humid about me talking about defensive ends, where he played. So, no, but you don't necessarily have to play the game. It does help. It does give you insight.
It gives you an insight that you wouldn't have. I know from my limited experience, I know that I can see when fighters are bluffing and lying and not trying. I know that when you get hit, things change, plans go out the window. So that gives you an edge, okay? Just like I said in the Stephen Fulton fight, I knew he was done 30 seconds into the first round when the first 3 jabs he threw missed Inoue by about 8 inches, and I said, okay, he hasn't even been hit yet, and he's already bluffing, so he's worried about Inoue, what he's going to do, and he hasn't even felt him yet. But I will say this, Jack, I have some friends, 1 or 2 of them may even be watching this, but I would go to them when it comes to picking a fight, the winner, and trusting their instinct as much as any of my buddies or trainers that I know that are involved in the game. I have a couple friends, Jack, that have never been to a boxing gym. I'm not sure they ever had a street fight, let alone boxed, and they are great at picking the winners. And as I've told this story before, when I was 21 years old, George Benton, one of the most renowned trainers in the sport at the time, Jack, he would call me up before he made a bet on some of the big fights, and he'd say, John, call all white guys that fought John. John, who do you like in this fight? What do you think? And he'd say, you're really good at breaking them down. He goes, and you know what? I just want to make sure I'm not betting on the guy that you think has no chance. I was 21 years old at that time. I was an amateur boxer, watched a lot of fights, but he trusted me, and it's the same thing. I never played football, but I've watched enough football. I can tell who's good, who's not, who matches up. Now, look, do I have insight like Jim Jeffcoat? No, I've never played defensive line in the NFL, so I'll cede to him. But I do think if you fought, it gives you an edge. And there are things that you can't pick up unless you've been in there and know what it feels like. But for Joshua to say, guys that never fought really can't criticize him, well, that's not true because we've watched enough fights. You don't have to be an ex-fighter to realize that John Ruiz and Tommy Morrison got knocked out worse than Joshua ever did and picked up and carried on. You don't have to be an expert to realize Joshua hasn't done that.
Well, certain things need direct training. For example, I couldn't be a trainer, even though I boxed amateur, showing fighters how you move your foot inwardly, outwardly, tucking in the elbow. That I think there's a certain expertise that a trainer has, and I'm not going to pretend to have that. Do I feel I can judge a fight easily? I judge fights all the time, watching them as is.
You have 50 years experience doing it. You better know what you're looking at.
Seminar and listen to a guy teaching me. Probably has worse judgment than I have. Okay, refereeing, I know what I'd have to do, but when you're actually in there, it's a little different. It's easy from the outside where I'm to say stop a fight at that moment. But when you're actually moving around, I understand it's a little harder. But yeah, but
I would be a terrible referee. I would let fights go on too long. And as far as a trainer, I would be a good corner man. I don't know if I want to be the guy getting the fight getting the fighter ready and outlining his road work. The technical aspects about feet and all that, I'm confident with that and competent with that. But as far as how to train the guy and prepare him for the fight, Jack, you know what? I would burn my guys out. I would push them so hard they'd have nothing left for the fight.
No one gives a darn what you and I would do. Let's talk about the other big fight this weekend. One of my favorite fighters, Emmanuel Navarette, defeating Oscar Valdez. Great fight, like expected. They had a real theme, like it was going to be a Mexican Civil War. And Julio Cesar Chavez was there doing commentary for someone. We saw him there. And Top Rank brought in Eric Morales and Antonio Marco Barrera.
Who was on his feet after every late round, Barrera was.
Right. And they wanted to remind us of all their great fights in there. And I want to say something about trilogies when I'm done making this statement on Navarette. Navarette's always been one of my favorites. He won the fight basically in the manner that I thought he would, even though two of the scorecards were a little too wide. There was a 116, 112, and that was a consensus scorecard, the fair one. And then you had a 118, 110, and a 119, 109, meaning one judge gave Valdez only one round, the other only 2 rounds. That was a bit extreme, but the right guy got the decision for sure. And Emmanuel Navarette, there's one thing, you could outbox him for a while. You could do this, you could do that. The one thing you can't do is outlast them. If it's a fight, a war of attrition, no one is outlasting Emmanuel Navarette. It's just not going to happen. He would even outlast Rocky Balboa. That's how he is. I'm telling you, he fights. And Tim Bradley, your favorite broadcaster, your favorite analyst, Frank, said something that made a lot of sense. Emmanuel Navarette fights in waves. Think of it being in the ocean, the water. You have these little waves. You jump up. You're having a good time. Then a series of waves, and then one big wave comes, and then it's a while till you can reset for the next wave. Emmanuel Navarette, the waves come one after the other, so with such force.
Jack, it's funny you said that. Here are my notes on the fight. It's almost like you read them. It was a sensational fight from start to finish. Navarette is a monster. He does everything wrong, has no footwork, and is easy to hit and loops his punches. But nobody is better conditioned. He threw 132 punches in the 10th round, and it is impossible to predict what he will do. He throws all kinds of punches from all angles. He never stops. Valdez had to counterpunch when he could, and he did a good job of it, but there's no way to fight Navarette. Even Marco Antonio Barrera was on his feet after each of the later rounds. Navarette fought the last half of the fight with an injured right hand, but he never stopped punching. Pretty much what you said, basically.
Yeah,
The
and
guy
let me say
just
something about trilogies, Frank. There's a certain myth about trilogies that no one ever mentions. Okay, you talk about Barrera and Morales. Only two of their three fights were great fights. You talk
right.
about even Mickey Ward, Arturo Gatti. I was at their second fight. It was no more than a decent fight. It was pretty one-sided. It wasn't really that exciting. At one round that was exciting in that fight. Fights 1 and 3, Ward and Gatti were tremendous fights. So you look at all these trilogies that take place, and okay, let me throw this question at you. Ali Frazier, which was the most exciting fight of the three? Not the biggest event. I'm not talking about an event. I'm not
I
talking
can just,
about the outside the ring stuff. I'm talking about what took place in the ring only.
that's easy for me, Jack. I've had all three I've had a copy of all three for 35, 40 years. And I watched the first fight the most because I think their skill was at its highest level. And I just think that was the best fight. Now, the third fight.
Let me put it another way, Frank. Which was the most entertaining fight of the three? The action in the ring, the entertainment.
For most people, they would say the third fight. For me, it's still the first fight.
Okay.
But the third fight, Jack, the third fight was the most brutal because they both deteriorated at the same level and they really couldn't miss each other and they really beat each other almost half to death. But Jack, I think the second fight is a little bit underrated because that was also fought at a fast pace. It just was the least physical and they beat each other up the least in that. But I thought all three fights were exceptional.
Ali Norton, which was the best fight out of the three?
The second one.
Watching it as a fan. Second one, we agree. Actually, the second one, yeah.
Right.
We do that. Okay. Barrera, Morales, as I remember, I think it was the second fight that wasn't that exciting a fight. I've got to,
Yeah, I think you're right. It was the second fight, right?
Yeah, one of the three wasn't, but that's what happened.
When I think of those three fights, Jack, I have frustration with Morales because I always felt that he left a little on the table in a couple of the swing rounds in those fights where he could have taken control better.
Yeah, and then you think of Griffith Benvenuti, a wonderful trilogy. Probably the best match of the three was their third fight with Griffith.
I don't think they were great fights though for 15 rounds. Do you?
No, but they were.
They had their moments.
Griffith and Benvenuti. Benvenuti became a big star because not many people were familiar with him in the USA, and he beats Griffith for the title, upsets him here in New York. So people wanted the impression it was a great fight. They were both guys scored a knockdown in that fight. And Don Dunphy was criticized for how he called the fight. And he said, I'm not going to fake a fight call and make believe something's exciting when it's not.
He was not Joe Tessitore.
But let me tell you this. Isn't it their job to make it kind of exciting, try to make it as exciting as you reasonably can? I know people who are watching it on TV. Okay, they can see what's going on in the ring, so you can't get too carried away. And how many times, Frank, as we watch the fight on TV, I think one fighter lands a punch, and the commentator's telling me the other fighter landed the punch, and I'm doubting myself. Didn't I see something differently there? But let me get back to Emmanuel Navarette this moment, okay? Emmanuel Navarette is a 130-pounder now. He's old school. He says he'll fight anyone. I think this is a mistake. When Shakur Stevenson's name came up, he said, oh, yeah, I haven't given him much thought, but sure, I'll fight him.
I saw that.
When he says it, I think that would be a big mistake because
I agree.
Shakur Stevenson wouldn't let him unwind, and Shakur Stevenson would probably win decisively by decision. Okay.
Right.
Now, Anui, something interesting came up. Your man, Floyd Money Mayweather, he must still have a relationship with Tank Davis because he's advocating for Tank Davis. Tank Davis basically fights for the PBC. Mayweather is still close with the PBC. I'm not sure, is Davis he's probably not on the contract to Mayweather. It might be a fight-by-fight thing, or maybe it's just Mayweather's ego. Mayweather was complimenting Inouye, okay? And how great the Japanese fighter looked with Stephen Fulton. And Mayweather said, well, he took a lot from me, but that's okay, you know.
I saw that.
Which is cool. Okay, if it feeds his ego. He wants Inouye to fight Tank Davis at the catch weight. Now, Inouye moved up to 122. Let's say Inouye called his bluff. Bob Arum says it's ridiculous, but let's say Inouye insisted on it, and he made Tank, who fought at lightweight 135, he calls his bluff. He says, sure, I'll fight you, Tank, at 128. I'm moving up. And if Tank Davis somehow thought, I could take all the weight off and beat this little guy, do you give Inouye a shot if Tank really came down?
Yes, because Tank is not Tank at 128. At 128, I think he'd be very compromised. I don't think that's a fair fight for Tank. I think that's a joke. I saw what Mayweather said. He also said, you know, we got to have a catch weight and have Inouye VADA tested. So we know what he's saying there. Jack, I think the two biggest, most ridiculous fights out there that people are talking about are catch weight fights between Tank Davis and Inouye, and Tank Davis and Terrence Crawford. I think they're both a joke. And boxing fans, again, we wonder why would they sell us junk all the time, because you guys will buy it, talk about it, and feed into it. I don't want to hear about
it more than anyone. You're the king of buying these pay-per-view.
I wouldn't buy that junk, Jack.
Okay, talk about this. This isn't a catch weight fight, but to you, this fight shouldn't be taking place. As much as you respect Jermell Charlo, you don't think he should be fighting Canelo. I know you want to see Canelo with David Benavidez, but let me throw this at you weight-wise, Frank. The talk is, and the fact is that Charlo is moving up 2 weight divisions from 154 to 168. But let me throw this at you. Let's say it was back in the day with the 8 weight divisions. Did you agree with me with this? Canelo would be a middleweight, 160, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Charlo, who is a junior middleweight, would be a middleweight, fighting in the 160-pound class. So really, that's their natural habit.
Jack, I don't think there's a big difference in size between the two of them. I don't have an issue with that. I just don't think Charlo deserves to get that fight, and I don't think Canelo should be fighting him. I think he should be.
Wait, he doesn't deserve. Boxing history has so many fighters who moved up a weight class and got a title shot.
Charlo should be fighting Tim Tszyu, and Canelo should be fighting Benavidez. But since that's not going to happen, Jack, I'm telling you, the night of the fight, Charlo is not going to look little. Remember, both of these guys basically started at 154. Okay, Charlo is taller and he's longer. Canelo is not a big guy. There's not a big weight difference here in this fight as far as the size goes. So I don't have a problem with that. I just have a problem that neither guy are fighting who they should be fighting. And it's all about gimmicks and catch weights. Back in the day, we'd have Charlo fighting Tszyu because he's the top guy in the division, and we would have Canelo fighting Benavidez. But there's too many fights out there they can mix and match with guys at different weights. So that's my issue with the fight. But no, I don't think Charlo is too small, and I think he's a live underdog.
Well, I'm planning on attending tomorrow's press conference in New York to officially kick off the fight. And I'm curious to see when they're kind of next to one another. But Canelo's really built. Eddie Reynoso, Canelo's manager / trainer / mentor, says that after this fight, it's a 2-fight deal. Fight both Charlos. Beat Jermell first, then beat Jamal. What I don't understand, how on earth they can make Jamal into a title bout. He's been so inactive for so long. What are you going to do? Be inactive 2.5 years and go right into a title bout or something?
Jack, but they can do whatever they want.
And it's
the OK Corral. They do whatever they want. It just tells us that Canelo is never fighting Benavidez, who is going to fight your guy, Demetrius Andrade, it looks like.
You know, that's an intriguing fight, Frank.
Stylistically, it is.
No, it's an intriguing fight because if I had to make a prediction, snap of a finger, you immediately think, yeah, Benavidez should beat him. He's more active. He's more this. He's more that. He's the naturally bigger guy, I think. Natural super middleweight. Andrade's been more like of a middleweight. Okay, but I don't know if Demetrius Andrade shows up in peak form and hasn't lost anything. He's a little better than David Benavidez. A little bit better if he shows up all cylinders going.
What do you mean better? A better boxer or a better overall fighter?
Just a better fighter, or just a little bit of a better fighter.
I would disagree with that.
I take Caleb Plant, for example. He gave David Benavidez a highly competitive fight. Benavidez clearly deserved the decision, but it was very competitive. Andrade shuts guys like that down. They don't even come close to him. They don't really, basically, if they win one round, it's one round more than, they could have won because he lets them. But
I think Benavidez physically is going to be able to overwhelm Andrade and shut down his boxing. I do think that.
Because of Andrade's layoff, his inactivity, I don't have the same enthusiasm about Andrade as I did a couple of years ago when we first started this show. I had a lot of enthusiasm, as you can remember, about Andrade, saying he'd beat Canelo, he'd this, he'd do that. He's been so inactive. I can't get psyched for Andrade's chances.
He's a wasted talent.
Oh.
Jack, let's touch on two other things. That one you had mentioned to me, I forgot to list it, and the other one is something that just happened to enter my mind. Derek Chisora is going to continue to fight. I'm worried about him, Jack. He's taken a lot of punches. Now, look, I know why he's doing it, because he's done this his whole life. It's who he is. And he's at the point now where he has earned the spot where he makes a lot of money being in these fights. I won't call him a trial horse because he still wins some of them. But, boy, he has taken a lot of punches. I worry about him down the road, Jack, when nobody's around him. But it's like he's earned this position, and how does he walk away from that money? Because he knows once he hangs him up, nobody's ever going to pay him that much money again to do anything.
The money's not that big right now. And I don't see Chisora lining up a big fight. He's basically fought, the top guys. And,
I understand that he's getting paid well, Jack. I understand he's getting paid pretty well, and that's why he won't walk away.
What are we talking about when he fought Gerald Washington? What could he have gotten? Did he get 150,000 or so?
I think he did a little better than that.
Okay, but you know what the problem is, Frank? They take their CAT scans, they take their tests, they're able to pass it because that never takes into account the damage that's going to run into down the road. It never takes that into account. And the sportsman and Chisora is allowed to take a pounding, not in fights against Gerald Washington where he can win that fight, where he's winning rounds. These referees and doctors want to give a fighter every possible chance to come back.
Right.
Giving him every possible chance to get hurt. But yes, Chisora, I wonder whether he's thinking of the implications. Fighters never think of the back end. Never think of the back end. And look at virtually every fight in boxing history, the majority of them. How do they wind up? Willie Pep, Sugar Ray Robinson, Muhammad Ali, great fighters, master boxers. How do they ultimately wind up? Joe Louis. You mean to tell me, Frank, I just mentioned a few names, and there are a lot more that'll cross your mind. Let's make believe they never boxed. They would have lived longer lives in all probability.
You're right. Every time you come out of the ring, it takes a piece out of you. There's no doubt about it.
No former champions ever lived to be 100 years old. Closest was Max Schmeling at 99. It didn't affect him. It didn't affect Jake LaMotta, the career. So what sometimes happens, other fighters are going to point to a certain fight and say, look, he got hit a lot, but he's fine. But
Jack, everybody's anatomy is different. Look at George Foreman. If you didn't see him, you couldn't tell if it was him speaking from 73 or 93.
But
everybody's anatomy is different.
There might be a price. George might live to be 90 years old, for example. I'm just throwing a number.
George is 75 now.
How is George going to be once he hits age 80, let's say? How is he going to?
I think he's going to be an 80-year-old man, Jack, because I think if it was going to affect him, we would have seen it by now. It affects everybody differently. But back to what your original premise was, how many guys who fight at the elite level get out of boxing with their health and their wealth? You could name them. There are not that many. And I think Anthony Joshua could be one of those guys. So it's like he may not beat Wilder, but he can retire as a two-time champ, have more money than he can probably spend, and he hasn't taken a lot of punishment. So his life down the road, he should age okay. So to me, job well done. Look at Lennox Lewis, Jack. Who got out at a better time than him?
Lewis didn't. Sometimes, Frank, it's a little deceiving. Career-wise, certain fighters get out at the right time. They know where to draw the line, like a Carlos Palomino. He lost 2 fights at the end of his career. He lost his title to Wilfred Benitez.
And then Duran.
Competitive fight. Then he fought a strong fight against Duran. Was beaten widely on points, but fought a strong fight. And then that was it. But he did make a comeback. Who knows how that affected him later on? It's easy. I forgot he made a comeback. But look at Andre Ward and Joe Calzaghe. They retired unbeaten. Maybe they finished ahead of the curve, and there's going to be no effect on them, with the punches later on. But look, the great Carlos Ortiz, he died at age 85. It caught up to him the last few years. He had told me at one point, I think it was in his late 70s, well, I'm forgetting certain things, he admitted. And cases are different, yeah, but
Jack, it's rare that the guys get out. Look, Marvin Hagler got out. Look, he got out kind of on a bitter loss, but if you think about it, he took less punishment and got out at a better time than Duran, Leonard, or Hearns. I mean, it's a shame the way he passed, but it's like he got out at the right time. He wasn't taking beatings. Okay, Monzon got out at the right time. Lennox Lewis got out at the right time. Marciano got out at the right time. Gene Tunney got out at the right time. I mean, they're few and Michael Spinks too.
You don't know how Rocky Marciano would have been had he not died in the plane crash at age 46. Let's say he hit his 60s, 70s. You don't know the effect the punches could have had on him. We don't know that, Frank.
But Jack, I don't really think
Tommy Hearns, have you heard him talk?
He doesn't sound good, I know. Neither does Riddick Bowe or James Toney.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. James Toney was a master boxer, but
at the end, he took a lot of shots and he laid on the rope and gave his body up.
Yeah,
I don't think we're going to see Larry Holmes have many problems. I mean, he'll age like an old man, but I don't think he'll end up like, some other guys.
Yeah. Larry Holmes has had some health issues. He had a fall in his home, a couple of years ago. He banged his head, things like that. But that could have been, if he never boxed, that may have happened to him as well.
Michael Spinks, even though it was a loss, he got out the right time. I have one for you. How about Bernard Hopkins?
I kind of wonder about Bernard Hopkins. Sometimes
I think Bernard was born in 69, which would make him 54 now, 55.
Hopkins fought into an advanced stage. You don't have to take a lot of punishment to put you over the top, especially when you're older. In this rematch with Roy Jones, remember Roy Jones hit him in the back of the head a few shots there. That could cause damage. One little thing against Joe Smith, only because he was age 51, he didn't take a beating in the fight.
Got knocked out of the ring.
Right, but landing, but any type of punches you're taking, and the sparring that we don't see. How do they spar? Okay, too. I agree cases are different, but one thing they have in common for the most part, we see what boxing does to guys because they fight on too long. Someone told me something interesting. The 4, 6, and 8 round fighters, usually it doesn't affect them the way that it does the world champions because they really haven't fought quite as long. They haven't fought quite with the intensity, against certain oppositions. So it's a problem. It's a problem in the case of Derek Chisora. Maybe Anthony Joshua should see Derek Chisora and think to himself, I don't want to fight too long. But if Anthony Joshua has, for argument's sake, Frank, let's make believe he has 100 million, okay? And that's his assets. Let's make believe, and chances are he has more than that. But let's call it 100 million. And Anthony Joshua's thinking, okay, if I fight Deontay Wilder, I can have 140 million. Is it worth him to train for the fight, take some more punches, even though that could be the difference between it's showing up late on and not? As long as the money is there, guys going to keep fighting. And even when the big paydays aren't there, the guys who wind up broke, take someone from your hometown, Meldrick Taylor. Okay? Shape what it did to Meldrick Taylor.
It's a shame because of what happened in Meldrick's biggest fight, I think changed his entire life. Was never the same after that.
No, he was never the same about that.
Never the same after that. And Jack, he might not have been the same anyhow, but I just think if he gets the win in that fight, it just changes a lot of things, and he could manage his career a little bit better after that, where before he couldn't do that.
Let me throw this hypothetical at you. This is a lot of fun. Let's go back to March 1990, Taylor Chavez, final round. Chavez knocks Taylor down. Richard Steele looks at Taylor and he goes, okay, and lets him continue. Doesn't stop it. There are 2 seconds left. Chavez is at the other side of the ring. The bell rings. Taylor wins a split decision. That means and because of the way it ended, they're having a rematch. Probably, let's say 6 months later, 7 months later, whenever. They fight next again. Who wins? Does Taylor have the confidence? Well, I got up, he knocked me down at the end, but I took him to school for most of the fight. What happens in a rematch? Is Taylor psychologically destroyed, or is it just a blip?
Jack, I think if they would have fought a rematch, let's just see Taylor wins that decision.
Yeah, he gets
and they fight again. I think that fight took a lot out of him, and I think Chavez probably would have got him in the rematch.
You think so? Okay, that's reasonable to think. But
I don't know if Taylor could get back to where he was after that, but at least he would have had that win. Where I think Chavez, who did have some good moments after that fight, even though he had some bad ones, I think he would have matched up, and I think he probably would have won that fight. I wish that's the way it would have gone.
The other way, psychologically, to Julio Cesar Chavez, he would have lost. He would have gotten Taylor at the end. Would he have fought as patient a fight? He may have figured, look, I knocked him down at the end. I've got to start quicker. This guy is good. This guy actually beat me,
Right.
But who knows? It's all
right, Jack, there's a fight coming up. We'll look at it next week, but Usyk is going to fight Daniel Dubois. That's not this Saturday, the following Saturday, correct?
Yeah, August 26th.
Okay.
Usyk's a big fight. I don't know about you, Frank, but I regard Alexander Usyk as the world heavyweight champion. Your way of thinking, I believe, is, well, it's both him and Tyson Fury are champions. I want to see them settle in the ring. At least Usyk is living the life of a professional fighter, conducting himself like a champion. You know why he's fighting Dubois? He doesn't want to fight him, but it's
a mandatory.
He's got to go through with it, so he's going through with it, as opposed to Tyson Fury, who has a sideshow going on.
I've really soured on Tyson Fury, Jack. I've really soured on him. I respect Usyk much more. That doesn't mean I think that Usyk would beat Fury, but we don't know what Fury has left. I just know this much. Fury is chasing the dollars. I guess you can't blame him if you have that opportunity. It's easy for us to say, well, he should be doing this and doing that. Here's the way I break it down, Jack. If you're a guy like Mayweather or say Fury and you're chasing the money, that's great. Count your money. Have at it. But I don't want to hear all-time great. Okay? I don't want to hear of that with Fury. And I want to hear Mayweather has a better case, but I don't want to hear it so much with him either because he chased the money, he got the money, but he doesn't have many legacy fights on his record. And there's a lot of names that aren't there. And the ones that were there, in my opinion, don't mean as much because he got them after somebody else went through them. So you have a choice, legacy or money. You can't spend legacy, but it's there forever. So Tyson Fury is chasing money. I don't want to hear about his legacy. His legacy is beating Deontay Wilder 2 out of 3.
Eventually, he might come to the table, Tyson Fury. Usyk was willing to accept 30% before just to get the fight done with. That showed his confidence that he could beat Fury.
Usyk's a real fighter, Jack. He's a throwback.
That offer's off the table now, I'm sure. If Usyk demanded 50-50, otherwise there's no fight, do you have Usyk's back? Do you agree with him? It's 50-50. He'll say, look, I have 3 belts. I've been fighting all along. You're just in a sideshow. You didn't want to fight before when I accepted your offer. No more of that. It's got to be 50-50 down the middle, or say
Tyson Fury will never fight Usyk for 50-50.
Then the fight.
That's my prediction.
And then my friend Don Majeski, one of the most knowledgeable, the greatest boxing historian in the world, in my opinion, I get into arguments with him. I don't like to even talk with him about it. He feels a Usyk should take 30%, 25%, because it's more money than he can get fighting anyone else. Frank, sometimes it's more than the money. You have to have a degree of pride. You're not going to throw your pride in a garbage can because you can make a few more dollars with one guy than the other.
Jack, I agree with you, but think about the biggest and most colossal mistake a fighter ever made because of principle. And that was Joe Frazier when it came to fighting the rematch with Ali. Ali wanted 50%. Frazier said, no, we did that last time. So what did Ali do? He fought everybody else till the only guy left for Frazier to fight was Foreman. So Frazier had a choice. Fight Foreman for $850,000 or split $6 million with Ali, $3 million apiece. But Frazier rested on principle, Jack, and said, no, I won the fight. I'm the champ. He had a legitimate claim the last time. So what happened? Frazier's principle cost him all that money.
I think it was a little.
That's the biggest colossal mistake.
But it was a little more personal with Frazier. I don't think any of these fighters dislike their opponent as much as Frazier disliked Ali. I mean, Usyk maybe doesn't care for Fury at all. Maybe has no use for him. Right. He doesn't have that hatred towards Fury.
But Jack, I agree with that. But think about Frazier's point, though. It's like if you think about it, he won the first fight conclusively. He was an undisputed champ. But the business did not work to his advantage because, as Ali said, you're fighting on TV. My fights are being beamed all over the world. The people look at me as the people's champ. I don't need you to make all the money, where you can't make big money without me. So what happened? He fights Foreman, loses the title, then has to fight Ali in a rematch. And I don't think he got the same percentage of Ali as did Ali get in the rematch.
Wait a second, Frank. I think you're wrong. As I recall, they got the same money for the rematch. In the third fight with Ali, the champion, Ali got much more. Because
Ali got more money. I thought Ali got a bigger percentage in his rematch.
No,
he didn't.
Look that up. I
thought he did. I could be wrong.
50-50. Yeah, they each got. Yeah, I think. Yeah, they. No, I was 50-50 the rematch. Ali was no longer the champion. And keep this in mind, Ali was 2 fights removed from losing to Ken Norton. And then Ali lost to Norton in March 73, beat him in a rematch September 73. So by January 74, when they had it, Ali's stock was a little down as far as that went. So,
but he went into that fight as the number 1 contender to Foreman. Frazier was number 2.
Yeah, but everyone wanted to see the Ali Frazier rematch, and they knew they'd get around to Foreman. But good stuff, Frank. Okay.
All right, Jack. Anything else? Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. Final bell's ringing. But unlike Rocky Balboa, we're going to have a rematch on next Monday.
All right, Jack. Talk to you next week. Thanks for watching, everybody.